Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continued playthrough and look at Black Ice for Hearts of Iron 4 and their major changes in the economy and how well it's working and how to figure out what I should be doing. So yeah, let's continue this. We will give it a moment for our various conversions and imports to become effect to see if we are still insufficient in steel. Okay, so we come here. Well, I'm going to still wait another. Make sure we get to the 6th. Okay, we need to. Oh, wait a minute. We don't need. Oh, no. We need there. Okay, so we have enough steel now. We got more than enough. Okay. We can have this number negative. Here. Okay. Let's go down. That's too much down. Okay. East or western. Well, let's go back up here. Okay. So, okay, we're getting there. Still need more factories to feed the never satiated needs of war. Okay, and we're going 17 days to get around Belgium. We just really don't have the trucks to motorize some of these divisions properly. Okay, Soviet oil deal. Okay, so we are currently getting near our capacity with oil, but one civilian factory hourly fuel gain. Yeah, we'll do this because what we can do is, since we're getting nearly full, yeah, we can come over here and we can slightly come down on the oil, which will free up that factory that we just got the fuel gain with. And still be looking good there. Okay, we're holding out. We got some reserves along the Maginot. Oh shit, they've actually... Oh. Okay, well... Okay, they busted through our west wall. Let's... I haven't been paying close enough attention here. I was trying to have two divisions and a garrison unit, not really a division, holding the wall, but between playing and talking and whatnot, not paying close enough attention, they did get through. But I don't think that's going to matter too much. Matters a bit, but we're going to push, we're going to just go around here. So as soon as we get that. The Italians are in a stalemate along their border. They jumped once they entered the Axis, then Hungary calls them into the war. And so they're holding out and actually pushing into Tunisia. And they're battling down here. All right. Give you the state of our war here. Okay. No, we're going to add more trucks to the proposal. More trucks, more motorization. Yeah, we're building. I think that getting production up and going is way slow, but that's just my opinion. How is the air war doing? Okay. We are holding our own over our own airspace, which is good for us. And not for the Italians. Okay, we have a lot of fighters, but most of them, well, okay, we have 30-some 109s that aren't being used at the moment. Well, let's create another fighter unit here with our better 109s. They will fill up here with a few older types. And close support aircraft. Okay, mostly older. Yeah, nothing really sort of modern. Heavy fighters, though, we are actually doing fairly well with those. So let's create a heavy fighter. Unit. Heavy fighters in this game are particularly useful for going after bombers. The heavy tank in production again, great through break. Look at this stat. Yeah, they're not bad, but well, we just don't have enough, in my opinion, production capabilities. You can come down to here. You guys come over to here. And you guys here. So we can see here we are getting a little problem with some of the supply there, but doing okay otherwise. And wartime steel industry, good. Research finished. And look out here, we took out a French convoy. They're still battling it out here. Subs versus a convoy. We got a British convoy. Oh, up here, let's see. Ooh, got a Canadian convoy. Looks like we lost 2 subs there, but overall we've been doing pretty good. Well, let's see. The cavalry division. These 3 will go here. These 2 will go here. And these 2 up there. I am not sure which is the 10th Panzer Division here. First Panzer. Here. This is tells me that it's an assault artillery gun situation here. It's showing this medium support tanks is for some reason they're using there's a lot of them in this unit compared to the other size. We can see that this right now this 10th Panzer Division is not particularly well balanced. But it has a bunch of medium tanks in it. And but that to me is a assault gun, because the dot in the center means to me artillery, and I guess that's why they're considering support tanks. And obviously the oval around it means armor. And the single line means medium. Instead of a thick line would be heavy. Okay. So we got wartime steel factory, which I think, no, that's... was here? Here, wartime steel industry. Okay, factory, industry, whatever. Artillery production capacity per assembly plant, +1. Steel output, +1. And refinery, steel refinery build speed, +5%. So that, of course, is very useful. Synthetic fuel production. The coal input for synthetic fuel is lower. Research, excavation, fuel storage 2. Fuel storage. Okay, capacity. So if we want more fuel storage, we need to research this. 44 days. We'll do that. Hey, Starstreak, 7 a.m. Well, good morning. It's 10 a.m. for me, and it's 7 a.m. there. So we sort of, not real heavy tanks, but we sort of kind of have heavy tanks there to support the tanks. We are still waiting for this to complete. And we're not going to bother to try to retake their railway network, because we're just going to go busting around. Okay, so we've got this one here, which railway construction speed up 4% and efficiency retention higher. Okay, max entrenchment, land force coastal. Yeah, that's nice. All these are nice. We need to get all of these things, I think. Ship workshops, shipyard. Okay, yeah, we're going to do this. Military production. 5%, but it's base stability down. But we've done several things to improve our base stability. I don't know if we can see... You see all the things that are affecting it. And do the math, but I don't want to do that right now. And Italian police have showed up in Germany. Oh, that's good. Just what we need. We needed Italian police in Germany. Here, up. Okay, around. War with all these. Right. Okay, so we are... now at war with everybody. Yay. Had you slightly closer to the front when the war broke out, but oh well. Bad planning. That's my fault. It's all my fault. Okay. Well, we were sort of on the front for there, but we should have had that ready to go to Luxembourg. You head up to I. Oh, can't you go? Wait. You're, okay. Okay, I thought we touched right there. Well, never mind. That means everybody just sort of goes here. Yay. That way. You all join the Allies, of course. Pressure towards Benelux. All right. Fall Gelb, or a bad proximity of it, or approximation, I should say, has begun. Now, you guys charge, get on your horses and go. Yeah, both can go that way. You go here. You go that way, and you support that attack. Okay, well. Okay, Grand Duchy is capitulated about the time it gets called into the action by the Allies, and we get 108 carabiners. Okay, well, fun times. You're pushing faster than I thought. You would be. That armor, well, very good. So we can deal with techs here. Okay, it's not. 400 days is too much, Arno. I know you'd want a tiger, but we will in time. We will in time. Okay. Okay, 59 days, we can do that. Now, do we want to... Okay, commercial agreement. Operation Westerborn, we're not ready to go north yet. Well, expansion. Okay, 14 days. We'll worry about expanding the evil guys even more. Oh my God, that's down through there. No. Where to come with that? Oh, no. Okay. You guys. Alright. Bad clicking. Okay. Guys, start heading that way. Port talk on Amsterdam. Hey, these guys are really moving fast, so we're gonna... One of you is gonna come to here and to sit down. One of you is gonna come this way. The other one's gonna go that way. These guys go here. These guys are coming and catching up. These guys are gonna attack south to Metz to hold forces there. These guys are going to move forward. Yeah, well, we'll see about something else soon to get him. Oh, you come south, you come west. Oh, why are you still back here? I don't know. No, you're just gonna... You guys support the attack north. We are pushing very deep in, very fast, and I'm worried about getting cut off. So we're going to get a little bit of a pause while we push. No, we're not selling any food. These guys are going to attack south again, just as a spoiling attack. Delay any movement. Alright, so first three divisions here are going to move straight south to pin those forces. Three are going to move west up there. The others are going to come down south that way. These are going to go that way. Let's go south here first. You attack there, you guys attack across the straits. You guys can start moving west. Now we have, I think, yes, just got in a bunch of garrison forces, which we're going to start putting on trains and move this way to guard our ports. And some more infantry divisions here also to help along there. Okay, so attack that way. Order support. That would be that is attack into there. To there. Visions here. That direction. Now, short periods of time we can deal without railroads, but we can see here we need to capture up into Brussels to be able to properly supply down into here. So that is very much it. Hello, Kronos. Will you use Dorito planes someday? Are you thinking of the Horton fighters and bombers? Well, maybe. I don't know if we're going to get that far in this game, but... Okay. I get a bunch more Waffen-SS people, units, things. I think we will do more fuel storage because we may get to where we're actually. Okay, the Netherlands. Well, Italy has declared war on Greece. Yay. We'll see how well that goes. And the Dutch have collapsed. Now this is about as hard as it was in real World War II. Why? Couldn't you? Come on, people. I mean, this is only a half-hearted rant because it's only half-hearted, but because that's my feeling on this. Why the hell did this happen? Yes, this may be the right historical date. But even then, I'm not sure. I think it was around now. The British lost... Well, we lost an airplane. Italy lost a transport ship, and Britain lost a light cruiser. Couldn't you... We lost a plane there. We lost 2 planes there. Well, they lost 6 convoys. Couldn't you put a simple check that says, has France surrendered or not? Or who controls Paris, Nantes, Bordeaux, something like that, before you can do the national focus or have an event that Greece shows up. That is bad game design, bad modding, people. That this is just because dates are fine. Dates have, and you can still put, after a particular date, on this date or later, do this thing. But the only real reason Mussolini goes after Greece. Now, he's long wanted Greece because he wants to rebuild the Roman Empire. But he's having trouble in North Africa. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and we can maybe see some of this coming in the near future, or currently with. Why do I make these series? Well, hello, everyone. Of course, I know I said hello, but of course, this is Gamer1745. And if you're interested in wargaming, history topics, and me blathering on about conditions in the world, you should subscribe and watch the videos. I am trying to bring you lessons from history. Yes, they also include historical lessons, facts about the past. But trying to educate people, that's the mission. I have fun hanging out with people. I have fun chatting with you guys. I have fun making the videos. But trust me, I don't do this for the money. I don't do this for the money. I don't do this for the fame. No one knows who I am. But I'm trying to teach people from historical lessons. And we see this repeatedly. And I find it strange. And it may come down to the maxim that to a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Okay? And the idea, if all you have is a hammer as a tool, well, you're going to hammer on things. Okay? You're going to bash it to make it fit instead of cut it or something, So we can see this repeatedly. Italy is not doing well in North Africa, right? Historically speaking. It's not. It's at best, it depends on when we're talking about, it's at best doing a fighting retreat in Ethiopia, but it knows it can't hold on forever, because although they set up, I think, a sort of makeshift air base out here to fly down, refuel, and then fly, because this is an immense distance, people, fly across Sudan. And they're actually continuing an air bridge that are, when the aircraft come back, they fly out some wounded Italians. They're flying in maybe some specialists, flying in some specialist equipment. I don't know what it might be, but, things that they desperately need, but, spare parts for radios or whatever, But in no way can they logistically continue to support this formation down here. So I think there's enough local food produced that there's no real worry about starvation for Italian units down here. But ammunition, replacement, anything hard, of any scale, damaged, whatever, tanks, artillery, plane. Well, to some degree, you can fly some in, but some of the shorter range stuff can't even do a one-way trip down here. Fuel, there's no fuel factories down here. So this can only hold out for a limited amount of time. You can only make it so painful for the attackers to just delay it for some time. So what should Italy do? Well, yeah, before any war breaks out, have a lot of supply depots. Now, militarily, once they go to war, they should have a plan to take the Suez. And then that would link, supply chain up. And so, but Italy's not doing well in North Africa. Now, the reality, and this is what we see with the Germans and the Italians fighting in North Africa, and you also see it with the Western allies too, is you get diminishing returns. This is more correct compared to some other games here. Not that there's just Egyptian forces here. Egypt, back here they the oasis Siwa, do they have a garrison that does sort of engage enemy units that make it to it? But the Egyptian army basically disappears from any fighting. It's equipped with World War I light and heavy equipment, literally, not just those models. They're British units out here, but both sides have trouble putting more units here. The British, actually don't really have a rail link out here, but they do have a pipeline. So this is sort of simulating the pipeline. They actually make a pipeline to get, or a couple of pipelines, I think. One for water maybe, and definitely a fuel pipeline is built into the desert to keep forces supplied. So both sides are having trouble. The British are doing pretty damn well in the air and the sea. They're sinking a lot of the forces. So even if you bring in a few more divisions, the Italians know that they just may be more problems than good, because they don't have enough food, let alone ammunition and other things. So what do you do when you're losing one war, and they are losing the war in the desert? What do? Start another one. Now, we could argue that this is good strategic planning, because if you get Greece, now Greece is neutral at the time. Greece is actually wanting to join the Axis, or at least some of the leaders are. I don't know if the people are, but the leaders are. But Mussolini is sort of saying no, because Mussolini wants the territory. Hitler really doesn't care and doesn't think it matters. So, so this is sort of all neutral in here. But you can see that, oh, hey, if you put air bases here, well, they can, go after ships, submarines, whatnot, down here. So, and also flying in supplies, or having Italian ships coming along the coast, protected by friendly air power, going in and out of friendly controlled ports, and then making, a supply run to here instead of a supply run from, up here in Naples all the way down to Tobruk. You can see how, and with Malta as a, thorn in your side, this looks good strategic planning. You can say this is good strategic planning, gamer. You should, respect it. Bullshit. There is no strategic plan. Absolutely none. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Eisenhower or somebody like that. Says plans are useless, but planning is essential. Because when you plan something, we're going to send this division, charging across here. You plan it out. Not just send it, but you plan. Okay, well, what do you need? Well, we need this much fuel. Well, do we have the fuel? You're going to be past the railhead. Do we have trucks to move the extra ammunition forward, further forward? And, you plan all these things out, and you plan, who's going to give you air cover? Oh, it's going to be these squadrons. Okay, that's good. As opposed to those squadrons doing something else. Who's going to be your CAS? What units? So you plan all this stuff out, and then when the plans, well, they're almost useless when you really get going. They're not entirely, but they're somewhat. But you've sort of planned what you're going to do, and then you adjust as you go along. Once the action starts. Right. Well, there's no planning for this. When this goes off, it is, I believe, like in September, when harvest season is. And not only are a lot of Italian soldiers in and around Albania harvesting food, a bunch had gone back to Italy to harvest food. So you had the units here at, I don't know, let's just throw out a number, 60% strength, because 40% of the soldiers are out harvesting food to keep, because it's sort of a short window, lots of labor needed. You can have your soldiers go do that. And so if you were planning, if you were doing strategic planning, not just like, oh, hey, this is a good idea, let's go do it, but planning, you would go, oh, okay, well, what do we need to do to go after Italy? I mean, go after Greece here, as Italy. You might think coming over these mountains that have we can look here. There's no railway infrastructure. Basically, these are barbarous mountains. I could say something radical like, there's no roads. Well, yeah, but they're sort of mountain trails, dirt tracks that trucks can drive along, sort of, kind of. They exist. Okay, they do. But there are, and we're not even talking no highways. We're talking no developed single path proper roads. Yeah, there's a few, a few tracks, a few trails. But to move large amounts of supplies, large amounts of units across here, there's basically nothing. And even if there is one per province here, okay, but how easy it is to find, through mountains, a valley where the road goes through to snipe on it, it's super easy to hold. So even if I'm overstating, and trust me, hello Beam Slam, trust me, I know I'm getting my facts wrong. This is commentary. This isn't detailed historical historical facts here. Get a proper documentary if you wanted that, or read a book if you want that. But I know I'm generally right, because still to this day, there's very limited infrastructure along here. Okay, there is some, but it's still very, very limited. So if you're planning this, I'm sort of remarkably surprised that they actually have 2 mountain divisions in the mountains. I mean, that's so rare in this game. Often you see mountain divisions out in the plains, and you see armored divisions sitting in the mountains. But hey, that's good for them. Probably an accident, but who knows. You might think about a naval invasion. Italy's most advanced developed branch of service is the Navy. It's not the most advanced out there. It's just for the Italian services, it's the most advanced. And yes, I know Mussolini doesn't want to lose it, but using it along the coast here in Italy with a lot of air cover and whatnot, so you can probably come in along here, and if you do have strategic and maybe tactical surprise, you can probably land considerable forces even along. There's a lot of minor fishing ports here that you can land, and you could supply a division or two. You can probably come down into the Peloponnese down here and land where, Peloponnese naval base too. Land down here and secure this, and that, even if this, because this is the Corinth Canal through here, even, which does turn this technically into an island. Okay, you're not maybe going to branch out, but it does create another front. It's supplyable, and it turns the flank, okay, of the Greek, because there is the sort of Metaxas line up here. It's more along here, I believe, because we're more worried about Bulgarian and Yugoslav attacks. So you would plan these things out. You would not have your divisions down at partial strength. You would move in a few more divisions. And the idea is Mussolini at this point, after France's fall, has a pretty big army. It cannot effectively supply more troops of any sizable amount down in North Africa, but it could use its army and its air force. Again, supply is an issue here closer at home, and this looks like a juicy target. So you would plan these things out. They don't. He also is also done as a surprise to the Germans. The Germans get word that that the Italians are at war with the Greeks after the battle starts, because Mussolini feels that he is. In 1933, Italy has a stronger navy, stronger air force, and stronger army than Germany. In 1933, 1934, maybe even into 1935, Italy is seen as the much more powerful, especially militarily, of what is going to become the Axis powers, and Hitler is sort of sucking up to Italy. Now, of course, even in 1933, industrially, Germany is much, much stronger than Italy. But, so in the sort of dictators of Europe, Mussolini is sort of the cool older one that's, and Hitler's the newbie. And so with Germany taking out France, Mussolini has a personality, inferiority complex, and he wants to prove that Italy is great. And he proves that Italy sucks in his attempt. But so the war is not doing well. Let's start another war because we think we can win this one. Now, this isn't isolated. World War II. Japan just cannot defeat China. It just can't. Yes, in war games in this way, there is sort of kind of a way to do it. I could argue just because if you can do it, the game is broken. And the reason I say Japan cannot defeat China the problem comes down to is, yeah, warfare is again, what are some of my maxims? Warfare is a political act. Politics is perception. Okay, that is true. But China, the Chinese mentality, the Chinese view of themselves as the Middle Kingdom, as the superior, not just in Asia, but the superior culture, race, whatever, and the rest are just barbarians of one level or another. And yeah, they've been conquered by the Mongols for a while. The Ming, the Manchurian Ming dynasty has come down, but in a way, China sort of conquers the Ming dynasty or whatever by turning it more Chinese, and they do that with the Mongols. By the time you're getting into the middle of the 20th century, they're not going to really go for a Japanese overlord too much. And Japan just does not have a big enough population to populate the army to occupy all of China. Now, there are probably, historically, about 100,000. Let that number sink in. 100,000 or more. I've seen figures, and it could be probably higher than that. Chinese that take up service in this reform government of the Republic of China, as soldiers. Now, most of them I would describe as armed guards, guarding factories, guarding bridges, guarding supply depots, doing policing actions in cities. They're not there to die for Japan. They're not there to die for this new republic that may or may not stick around for a while. It's more, to use a Chinese saying, it's to fill their rice bowl. It's a job, and it's better to be the guy with a gun than the person without a gun. And so, yeah, it's not really enough. There might be, because I know there are a few up in Manchukuo, a few good units, motivated, ready for combat units. There might be a few of those units existing, but for the most part, they're just like um, armed security guards. Now, Japan, I would say more or less, if it organizes up its military force, it can go wherever it really wants to in China. It can hold enough of the rail links. It can hold enough, because there's also a lot of supply along rivers. Hold enough to move a sizable enough army and take wherever. But to do so, and to hold its supply lines, it would have to pull units out of other areas. So if it really wants to hold a bunch of different areas, well, then it can't go anywhere it wants to, because it's trying to hold everywhere. So that's sort of the paradox. Yes, paradox. Hey, folk. Japan intended to work out some sort of understanding with China, but the negotiations. Okay, well, see, now you're absolutely right, there, folk. Japan is new to the world. You really have to realize this, because how old is Japan? Ancient, yes, it is. But how how old is Japan's real interaction with the world? What, about 1850 or so? When what is it, Commodore Perry at the time, or Admiral Perry, or whoever, shows up with the American ships and goes, knock knock, we want to trade. We have a fleet here, you better trade with us. And yeah, sure, to some degree they see all those big cannons and they're a bit frightened, but more they're going, oh shit. The people are going, oh shit. It's not that they're worried about those cannons blasting them to pieces. They could, of course. No, they're going, oh shit. Aliens in flying saucers just landed here. We're behind. And really, there is a psychological change that happens in Japan that wants to, at least technologically, and there's also different pushes sociologically to modernize. Which is somewhat westernized, but not to become, Englishmen or Americans, but pick and choose elements of culture. But so Japan in the world is 1850. So it's not that old. Where the unification of Italy, unification of Germany, it's maybe newer. But the German states, the Prussian states, the various kingdoms in Italy, they've been dealing with the world forever. Japan has been very isolated. Japan has had very little contact with the outside world. It's had 2 Mongol invasions that it fought off. Before that, it's done some sort of coastal raiding in Korea and whatnot at different times. But it's very isolated. It's more been a very, very inward-looking society. And that's as much saying anything about Japan as about its neighbors, because its neighbors, no one cared enough to invade. We can talk about China, and China is in also ways not that much in touch with the world. I mean, there are on its borders. So unlike Japan, on its borders with Mongols and mountain tribes and it's definitely been doing that. But they don't try to go to sea. The Koreans, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, whoever, they're not a sea conquering peoples. There's very little organized sea conquering, even down here where there's lots of raiding in different principalities or whatever you want to call them going on down in these parts that are semi-civilized, we'll say. No one cares enough to come in and mess with the Japanese. So Japan has had very little interaction. It's had one big war. It sees it with Russia, and it's had sort of interventions alongside other Western powers into China. And so, because of this, past is prologue or history repeats itself or however. So, Japan gobbles up Korea and then gets that organized and gobbles up Taiwan, which is not really part of it's never part of the republics of China, and it's gobbled up by Japan before Sun Yat-sen does his revolution. And even under the imperial systems in China, my understanding is at best it's semi-controlled. It's almost sort of like a pirate state off the coast of China, Taiwan, Formosa, whatever you want to call it. Japan gobbles these up and then gobbles up Manchuria. It thinks it's going to have another. It wants to have another gobbling up. It wants to grab up some territory, and then, as folk is alluding to, negotiate a ceasefire, a settlement, of whatever. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what it wants to do. It wants to create puppet states that are Japanese controlled, with sort of like the other Western allies, because they were allies up to a point with going after China. Japan was, because they got this actually in taking it from the Russians. This had been a Russian outpost here. They may want some direct controlled bits and pieces, but mostly it was going to be puppet states, I believe. And Chiang Kai-shek doesn't fear the conquest of Japan. So he refuses to negotiate and give up territory. He might not privately, he might not demand back Manchuria, but publicly he does. So the negotiations don't go anywhere. So Japan is fighting a war it can't win. Now, it also can't lose in the sense of being conquered by China. At worst, you could have is a collapse of the current Japanese government, whether that means the emperor or simply, the prime minister and whatnot, and withdrawing from the mainland, or maybe keeping Korea, but keeping some of the islands, and and a new Japanese government forms. There's going to be no Chinese conquest of Japan. That is also another practical impossibility, just because China doesn't have enough ability to build ships. And if you start, even if they take back some of the coast, Japan has the ability to bomb the shipyard building facilities. So there's no real way that they're going to take it back. So you might be able to lose the war on the continent, but you can't lose, be conquered. So it can't win that war. So what does it do? Well, it's being limited by its economy, Japan's economy, and which all the nations are being limited out there. But it's also its lack of steel, and it's trying to produce as much steel as it can, mainly in Manchuria. Its lack of steel, and particularly its lack of oil, that pushed by multiple powers, and as Shanghai in 1940 is still owned sort of by the British. The French are still sort of kind of there. The Americans in the international zone have a garrison, and obviously Hong Kong and Macau are still owned, and these other territories are still owned, and particularly Shanghai and like Hong Kong. Macau is never taken over because Portugal remains neutral. So there's still, the British are still trading into, occupied China through Shanghai until the very end. Okay. Hello, Loto Chow. How you doing? I do not read. Well, non-com. Sorry, pardon. I do not speak French either. I hope, maybe this will be translated at some point. I don't know. Okay, Kronos, yes, Hort in the plane which could have changed history if it was a bit earlier. I don't know if it would have, well, changed history. I don't think changed the final outcome, but might delay it. So Japan can't win the one war, and its main limiting factors are becoming fuel and steel. America is refusing to sell steel to it, and America is refusing to sell oil to Japan, and the British and their now puppet state, the Dutch, because the Dutch are still administering the Dutch East Indies, but functionally once, this happens, meaning the Dutch at home surrender, they functionally become a British puppet state. They also refuse to sell oil to China. To Japan because of China. Sorry, I'm getting this mixed up a bit here. And so Japan thinks, again, past his prologue, well, hey, we had this war with Russia. It was sort of stalemated. Russia sent the fleet around the globe, and we sunk it right here. They need to break the siege of up here at Vladivostok, particularly, and we sunk it in the Straits of Tsushima. Well, if we go to war with America, we'll sink their fleet at sea, and then because then once the Russian fleet was sunk, then the Russians negotiated a peace settlement. We'll negotiate a peace settlement with America, and sure, we'll grab up the Philippines. They probably would have given the Philippines back to the United States as part of the peace. I bet you they probably would have wanted to keep a few of the colonies down here. But the main thing would be sell us steel, let us, keep some of the oil production facilities down here, and we'll give you peace. And let us continue our disastrous war in China. And so you can't win one war, so you start a new one. Now, this isn't just, okay, translates for you. I'll see the French, we're no laughing matter, you're in trouble, cutie pie. Okay, well, thank you for the translation. Yes. Recently knew the third Krakow. Meinstein masterminded it. Still can do some stuff after so. Oh, yes. Oh, the Germans weren't beat until they were actually beat. Fully and completely beat. And von Manstein is one of my three top generals for Germany. And in no particular order, Guderian, Manstein, and Rommel are my three top generals for the Germans. Incredible generals, all of them. Now, if you think this is just the Italians and the Japanese, that you can't win one war, so you start another one, well, Hitler can't win a war. He can't defeat the British. He is pumping out as many submarines, as many long-range, the Condors and other anti-shipping aircraft as he can. He's pumping out as many bombers and as many fighters as he can. He can't bomb the British into submission. Once the war for Greece is over, he sends Rommel down, first to Tobruk, with the intention of just sort of creating a fortress area here. But Rommel pushes back and almost, is victorious. Big problem. They should have organized Rommel to be victorious from the beginning, and they very well might have taken Egypt. But Rommel is only given, it starts out as the Africa Corps. Once the war is lost in North Africa, he gets an army. Once, because, they have the Battle of El Alamein, once it's lost, then they create Panzer Army Africa, meaning it's more than one corps. And it's there. So once they lose, then they put in the effort. Well, they should have put in the effort at the start for the Germans. But he can't win against the British. So what does Hitler do? Starts a war with the Soviets. Okay. Now, this isn't just in World War II that this happens repeatedly. Napoleon can't defeat the British. He can defeat the Prussians several times, the Austrians several times. He can't because he goes to war stupidly with Spain, who had been his ally. The British had been fighting against both the Spanish and the French, but including an army in in Portugal. But then he goes to war. He goes to war with Spain, but he can't win that war. He can't. In 1805, he tries to invade England. He has the Grande Armée sitting here in Calais, and then do the whole sail back and forth across the Atlantic and whatnot. And Nelson sinks at the Battle of Trafalgar, right off here, sinks the combined Spanish and French fleets. And so, yeah. Is that 1805? Yeah, I think so. And then he goes in a bit later than that. But he goes and declares a war against Russia. And you all know, goes to Moscow and finds a burning city. So, this happens when you can't defeat one enemy. You go and you have an army, or a navy in Japan's case, and you start a new war to see if you can win that war that will somehow do this. This is stupid, people. This is stupid. If you can't win the war you're fighting, don't start another war. I'm looking at you, America. You haven't been able to win the whatever is going on in Syria and Iraq. You still got effing troops there. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, we have the U.S. Embassy and we don't trust any of the locals to defend it. So, we have 1,000, 2,000, I don't know, soldiers hanging out in the green zone or something like that. Though at some point you become an island in a sea of enemies. And sure, yeah, the Kurds are cool. I like the Kurds. I know some people think we shouldn't be supporting the Kurds, but the Kurds, how do I put this? And I'm not talking so much the Kurds over here. I'm talking the Kurds in Iraq. It's good to find an ally who has some affinity towards you, cultural affinity, not just whatever, but also is dependent upon you. And you can support them. That doesn't mean you need to put in troops and start another war. That means you can give them weapons, sort of like we're doing in Ukraine. We should not send U.S. forces into Ukraine. So it's cool that we may, and I think we should have, when we had more control in Iraq, actually set up a Kurdistan. I know that pisses off the Turks, but the Turks are trying to rebuild, and they're coming with local elections that may or may not hobble the attempt, but trying to rebuild an Ottoman Empire, a neo-Turkish empire. And it's very much trying to look very Islamic. The reason you brought Turkey into NATO was as a counterbalance to the Soviet Union, and the main establishment element in the Turkish government was the army, and it was Ataturk's secular army and not an Islamic religious army. So because it's becoming more Islamicist and expansionist, they need to be gotten out of NATO. I know they still think they sort of can pull some strings, and they have gotten Turkey to approve, even though there's periodic Koran burnings up in Sweden to approve Sweden coming into NATO and whatnot. And it's sort of trying to keep them out of the pro-Russian alliance, but Turkey and Russia are not natural enemies. And if Turkey's going to be expansionistic and Russia wants to have its allies in Syria and other places, they're going to come into conflict with Turkey anyway. So no, you don't have to really worry about a Turkish-Russian alliance of any real depth. Surface alliances, sure, but real depth, no, that's silly. The U.S. State Department for being around is stupid and silly. I'm sorry. I could be a better Minister of State or Secretary of State for the U.S. than about anyone has ever had, at least in the 20th century. So these international people, I'm just laughing at our State Department. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They haven't known what the fuck they're doing ever. They're just incredible. I mean, my God. My God. So yeah. What is Napoleon pressured the peace terms to push so that they wanted an opportunity to go to war with? Yes, they did. With going over there. Hello, Calogero Nostra. How you doing? Hope I got that right. So, just because you can't win this sandbox war, they're starting another sandbox war. Over on my other channel, my other YouTube channel, Crisis Report, and I did find that there's even another. Even though I did search before, I couldn't find him. YouTube has very bad. I wouldn't have called it that, but I got a Crisis Report channel there too. There's two channels called Crisis Report. There's the other one is slightly older than mine, but not terribly much older. Talking about why the Houthis are shooting missiles at our ships and whatnot, but there's more reason to it than they're telling you. But so yeah, governments have a tendency that if you can't win a particular war, start a new one, that somehow that will change the situation in your favor. Solve the conflict that you're in before you start a new one. Gain, a ceasefire, a peace, a truce, or whatever that's significant before you start a new one. And of course, sometimes people will just attack you. Italy will just attack Greece. So what can Greece do? China is fighting a civil war with, we can call it a civil war. The Republic of China is fighting the People's Republic, or whatever you want to call the communist Maoist state here. And then Japan attacks. I mean, so sometimes, you're fighting one war that you may not be able to, you may not be able to win it because of various factors, and somebody else attacks you. I mean, it's not always a choice, but we can see repeatedly governments doing this. And it's because the government has a hammer and it's trying to cut some wood and it's not working, but they see what looks to be nails over there, and so let's go nails on it. So yeah. All right. Well, we're going to end not the live stream, but the episode now. So thank you, everyone. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron and laughing at the U.S. State Department, I hope.